What's up everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Ryan Becker, and every week I drop a new video where I talk about absurd issues in religion, culture, and society. This week's absurdity, the tyranny of face masks. If this is your first time here, thanks for checking out my channel, and if that's all you ever do, know that I appreciate you because I know that your time is valuable. If you want to keep engaging with my content, make sure to subscribe to this channel and like this video. And the best thing that you can do to help me grow is share this video on your own page and with your friends. Ever since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, when lockdown and shutdown orders came in droves throughout the world, the United States has handled some of the adjustments quite differently than most of the world. Most notably over one item: face masks. If you had told me 8 months ago that face masks were going to be one of the most politicized and controversial subjects of 2020, I would not have believed you. But we did it. We found a way to make basic human care and empathy a political issue more so than a public health one. Those who are against wearing masks have stated that this is one way that the government is just encroaching on our rights to control us. They claim the CDC and the World Health Organization keep changing their tune and that masks can't protect you. So in this video, I want to clarify just a few things for you. Number one, you wearing a mask isn't meant to protect you specifically. It's actually meant to protect others from you. You see, masks don't stop polluted air from coming in, but they do stop the majority of particles from your sneezing, coughing, or talking from landing on someone else's face. This lowers the chance of transmission significantly. Masks are meant to be a precaution and a protection, but they don't magically make us 100% safe. If I am wearing a mask and standing next to someone who is not wearing a mask, then they are protected from me, but I am not necessarily protected from them. If I sneeze, most of the bacteria that comes from me stays local because it is blocked and captured by my mask. But if my unmasked neighbor sneezes, their bacteria just goes everywhere. This is simple logic. Less bacteria and particles flying through the air means less of a chance that any of those particles will land on my face. More particles flying through the air means a greater chance that any number of those particles will get past or around my mask, land on my face, or land on a surface that I might touch. It's worth pointing out that I have asthma, and I am at a higher risk of succumbing to COVID-19 if I get it because of my already problematic respiratory system. So when I go anywhere and see other people not wearing masks, it only sends one message: you do not care enough about whether those around you live or die to be mildly inconvenienced while you shop. Yes, air gets through and there's still a risk of infection that way, but if I can minimize as much of that risk as possible, then why not? I also want to address the idea that masks and all the measures happening after COVID-19 unleashed upon the world are a part of some government conspiracy or plan to control you, track you, and monitor everything you do. Number two, the government doesn't need to trick us into letting them track us. We already let them. Many people have been complaining that the coin shortage is an excuse to get us to use our credit cards so the government can monitor our locations. The irony here being that most, if not all, of the people claiming this already had credit cards to begin with and were actively using them. If you're using an internet connection, logging into Google, iCloud, social media in general, or really accessing any internet page at all, your location based on your computer or your phone's IP address is usually stored. We can see this with two-factor authentication, or just with sign-in notifications in general. Every time I access my Twitter or Gmail from a new device, I get a notification immediately telling me that there's been a login or login attempt from that location. There are really people out here trying to prevent the government from tracking them using the very devices, websites, and tools that voluntarily offer up all that information and more for free, let alone the fact that each of these people already has a driver's license and a social security number, meaning the government knows exactly who they are. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be concerned at all about government overreach. I am saying that face masks are not a demonstration of government overreach, and it's not something we need be concerned about. For me, I'm much more concerned with the selfishness of people who care more about how they feel in a face mask than protecting people around them. Every time I've gone to a store in the last 4 or 5 months, it's been painfully obvious who there cares if I or anyone else around them lives or dies. We are so worried about some new threat to our privacy, but we don't realize that we hold the very device in our pockets that we've used to openly hand our information over to the highest bidder for years now. But it doesn't stop there. Number 3, the anti-mask position, more often than not, is a hypocritical one. We are seriously out here in 2020 saying that masks are the representation of rights violations, instead of being concerned about police violating amendments in order to illegally search your car or your house, or several of the other ways that the government is currently encroaching on the rights of the US citizens. We are more concerned about masks than we were about the Patriot Act post 9/11. The bottom line is, the government actually does retain the right to require masks on citizens, and it is not a violation of our human rights for them to do so. And if you think I'm some crazy leftist for saying this, hear it from a notable conservative yourself.
The idea that you have a constitutional freedom not to wear a mask in the middle of a public health crisis is pretty weak. States have a lot of public health power. They do. Under the state constitutions, they have the ability to do all sorts of stuff to restrict your freedoms in the case of external threat.
For many of the more politically conservative crowd, I have watched an incredible amount of hypocrisy take place surrounding this issue. You see, in the United States, we have had issues with school shootings for decades. Those who are Second Amendment supporters and gun enthusiasts have long argued for no further restrictions on guns. Before I go further, I will admit that many of the conversations around the topic of guns come from a very ignorant understanding of gun terms and classifications and gun culture in general. There is a great need to have better conversations around gun legislation. Many of those staunchly against gun control have had no issue with kids being forced to go through metal detectors, having to have police on campus, having to have active shooter drills randomly in class, and they have to learn how to defend themselves against a gunman as a whole class together. So I'm trying to figure out in what world your right to own an object is more important than someone else's right to live. Because for many in this camp, they're willing to put kids through so much inconvenience and hassle just so they can keep owning a gun, but they wouldn't dare don a face mask for a few minutes to protect actual lives. This is especially heinous when you realize that all that security theater in schools hasn't actually stopped school shootings. Many gun rights activists will say that these precautions and security theater our children have to go through every day at school is just the price of freedom. But somehow, wearing a cheap mask to shop while we are in the midst of a very real and present danger is tyranny and government overreach. I will give $1,000 to the person who can explain logically how wearing a mask to protect people is tyranny, but making our children go through all of that security theater that's pointless just to still live out their educational experience in fear is the price of freedom. Hypocritical stances like that show that many of those shouting out the most about the issue of face masks don't really believe that it's a rights violation. One important note of clarification: not every gun enthusiast thinks like this, and not every anti-masker is a gun advocate, though there does tend to be some overlap in the political spectrum. When someone holds this kind of inconsistent stance, this is essentially what they are telling you they believe. If it's inconvenient for someone else, but benefits me, then it's just the price of freedom. But if it is at all inconvenient for me, it's tyranny and it's evil. So here's a straight truth for you. Inconvenience does not equal tyranny. That kind of attitude shows that you really believe that your convenience and hobby is worth others sacrificing their lives for, but others' actual lives aren't worth enough for you to make any personal sacrifice for yourself. What's sadly ironic about the face mask outrage is that it's nothing new. In fact, 45 years ago, the same people who decry face masks now would have also likely decried seatbelt laws in the 80s. Check this out. While there was already clear evidence that seatbelts saved lives, these measures faced stiff opposition. A Gallup poll from July 1984 showed that 65% of Americans opposed mandatory belt laws, according to the Los Angeles Times. In a survey 1 year later, drivers said that they thought the restraints were ineffective, inconvenient, and uncomfortable. Sound familiar? Some argued, incorrectly, that it was safer to be thrown clear from a wreck than trapped inside one. The greatest irony here is that now most people wear seatbelts and there is no one crying out that it's the physical embodiment of tyranny. It just seems like for many, they don't like being told what to do. What's even funnier about the comparison is that you don't just wear a seatbelt to protect you, but to protect everyone else in the vehicle too. It turns out, if you get into an accident, you become a giant rag doll as you are flung around the car. Surprisingly, the weight of an entire human being slamming into you is deadly. Wearing a seatbelt protects you and it protects others. The government mandated it permanently, and most of us have no problem today wearing one, and no one is crying foul. But in 2020, we were asked to wear masks for just a few months, and people have lost their minds over it. Here's the reality. If you dislike being told what to do so much that you would rather put other people in danger, especially people like me who are in a higher risk category, than to swallow your pride and wear a mask, then you are the problem. All I am asking, as someone who has asthma and has close family with health and respiratory issues, is that you please wear a mask when you go out. It's not that difficult, and you will survive the period of time that you are wearing one, and you will protect so many people in doing so. You are justified in your concern over government overreach and protecting your rights. I'm not trying to stand in the way of that, but face masks are not the hill to die on. You can protect other people and keep your civil liberties. So what will it be? Will you swallow your pride to protect those around you? Or will you put other people in danger just to make a political point? If you've made it this far, thanks for watching. And if you're interested in engaging with my other content, check out the description for links to my podcasts Absurdity and A Beautiful Faith, as well as the other great shows on the Absurd Podcast Network. And if you liked this video, leave a thumbs up, click that subscribe button, and share this video with a friend. As we go, enjoy some footage of my corgi Sugar to brighten your day.